This video is for YouTube user SilverShadow. He asked me about logos and fonts and how to get both game footage and player cam up at the same time. So for that I will be using Sony Vegas 9. This should work for Sony Vegas 8 and onwards. So let's wait for this to load. Okay, first we're going to import our media. So we're just going to get a few images and player and game cam footage. So for the media, for that this is my camera footage. File size is 954 megabytes, and I'm just going to drag and drop it into Sony Vegas. So you can either drag it directly and create a new track, or drag it into the project media bin so you have it for later. I'm just going to do that for now, and then I'm going to get the actual game footage, and this is actually 5 gigs because it was recorded as a DV or AVI in the DV format. So just drag and drop that here. And let's get some images. You can actually drag and drop Photoshop images like directly, and it will still work. It'll preserve all transparencies and drop shadows and that type of stuff. You can also do JPEGs or GIFs. I would recommend PNGs just for the transparency. But if, let's say for example, this logo that I used, it doesn't have transparency, so I'm gonna just drag it on into Vegas, and then I'm gonna drag it on and create a new track. Now you see there, it has a white background, and the project background is black, so that doesn't look too good. Now you can actually change the background. If you go to media generators and hit solid color, you'll get these colors. So let's say if I want it to be a cyan, if I want my background to be cyan, I can drag that there, and it'll give me the option to change the color here, so it's cyan, and I'll just leave it at that. But still, the JPEG with its white background doesn't fit. So you would go to Video Effects, and then you would go to Chroma Key, and for this you can just drag any chroma key and just drag it on top of the source. Drag it on top of the image. So right now, okay, nothing happened, it's still white. So what you have to do is set the color that you want to be chroma keyed. So right now it's set to blue, and since there's no blue, nothing happened. So you just you click right here and pick this color picker, and for that, now you can pretty much click on any color on the screen. So I'm gonna click the white. As you see, that actually cleared it up. Sometimes you may need to edit the threshold, because if it's like too low or not low enough, you'll get blocks, or it may not chroma key out everything. But since the background was different enough from the foreground, it looks okay. So like if the background was still black, you see these squares and stuff, so you would, in this situation, I think I lowered the, oh no, I raised the lower threshold, and I can use that to get rid of the blockiness, and it will still look okay like with the other color. So also just close that. So I have my logo. So now let me just go back to my media bin, located up here. Let me put in the player cam, and and to zoom in, you can scroll up and down on your mouse wheel if you have a mouse wheel, or you can press the plus or minus sign on the lower, right next to the lower scroll bar. So here you have the scroll bar, and then here you have plus or minus to zoom in or zoom out. And there's also a zoom tool, but I don't really use that. I mainly just use the up and down scroll wheel. So right now we have our player cam, and then I'm gonna put in the game footage right under there. So right now, as you can see, when you drag and drop, it creates new tracks. You can also manually create a new track by right-clicking below in this blank area and click insert new video track or audio track. You can do the same on a blank area of a existing track, or you can use the shortcut as insert audio is control Q, or insert video is control plus shift plus Q. So as you see, now we have our logo, we have a background, but everything is kind of just there. Like right here, the background stopped, and we just have the player cam, but we can't see the game footage. So now we get into resizing the backgrounds. And well, first let me just set up the layers so that they would, because like here layers are stacked. So like this is the very top layer where it says Crack TV and it's visible, and then go below that you get the cyan blue, and below that you get the footage. So over here, as you see your track numbers, you can click on it and drag it down to a lower level to move it, to push it down. So right now I moved it down to the bottom. Now top layer is still Crack TV logo, but the cyan blue is all the way on the bottom, and you can't see it because the player cam is taking up all the screen. So now I'm just gonna go over here to track motion, and you see a square. Up here you have enable rotation, enable snapping, edit an object space, prevent XY movement. This is so like if you are moving the videos area, it won't move in whatever direction you lock, so you won't move it up by accident. So if you want a perfectly level left to right movement, like aspect ratio, if you want to keep it 4:3 or 16:9, you just do that. Sometimes you may need to uncheck that if your media is weird, or if you need to stretch it or whatever. And then scale about the center. Scale about the center is just that when you resize the image or media, it will everything will zoom in or out based on the center, and if not, it will zoom out based on the opposite corner of the where you're resizing from. So like for example, I'm gonna make it smaller, and as you see, it's scaling into the middle. If I click scale about the center and unclick it, it'll scale down to the bottom right because I'm moving from the upper left. And I'm just gonna put that back. If you mess up or you just want to reset it, up at this top, up in the top, you have a preset list. You click down. I think by default there will be nothing, but I've already saved some for other things. And I will also suggest that after you get the size that you want, you go up here and first let me just resize this. So for this, I'm just gonna scale it down to, let's say, about this big, okay, and move it over to the bottom. Alright, like And for track motion, you can either use this area to scale it and highlight different areas. So like if you move the corners, you scale size. If you highlight and it'll turn blue, that shows you what axis you're manipulating. So this is rotate about the Z axis, which is the axis that's coming at you. Like you don't really see it, it's the axis coming at you. So you can just rotate or scale the size. But then you can also manipulate the size and position with numbers over here. So you can click on it, type in the number you want, type in the width and height, type in the angle or rotation. Sometimes it may be necessary to go into the setting and either type it in directly, click up and down, or click this slider and move it around for more precise resizing. But for this, since it's just a quick thing, I'm just gonna do it by hand or just do it by resizing this. And also in this workspace, you can zoom in and out by again the up and down scroll wheel. So sometimes you can move in so you can get a more precise resize. So I'm just gonna close that. Go to the Crack TV logo. Do the same thing for that. Just resize. I'm just gonna move this up here, similar to the video. Go down to the game, resize that as well. And as you see, the background of the cyan is still there. So I'm just going to resize this to that. Okay. So you got your logo, you got your player cam, and you got your game footage. Now in my video for this, I actually used something that was called I actually changed the composite mode to 3D source alpha, and when you do that, you get to manipulate, you get to actually rotate and change things such as depth and other type of stuff like that. But it's usually, like, for the basics, you can just stick with source alpha, 3D source alpha. Like that's how I rotated that's how I kind of skewed the image. Like I rotated it. See, like you can rotate vertically and horizontally. Zoom in. See, like you can see the other axes that you can manipulate. So when I was using this, I was using the other the direct manipulation over here, because sometimes you can't quite get on the axis you want. So like I can go to rotation, and then it rotates. I did something kind of like this. I'm gonna reset it to default. Go back to regular source alpha. And for, let's see, for the color and for any other track, some very useful things are wherever this cursor is, if you click on your media and press S, you will split it at that point, and you can drag the end of it to extend its length. But be warned, when you drag this for a media file, it will only, it's pretty much just gonna, it's not gonna stretch it out in the way you think it is. It's gonna add on to it whatever was at the beginning and continue to loop. To stretch it, you would have to go to the end, hold Control, and you'll see that the cursor moves from a double arrow with a box on one side to a double arrow with a box on one side and a squiggly line. That squiggly line means that you're going to be stretching it out and thereby slowing it down. Like that is a true stretch to slow things down, and then if you go back into it, you will make it speed up. If you're not holding control, you will literally crop off a end section. So now let me add a new video track, and then on top of that let me add text. So I will put the player's name. So you right click on you can either right click on a track and press insert text media and it'll pop up, or and to delete you either right click and click delete, or you can actually press delete, or you can go to media generator, click on text, drag a pre-existing preset, and you will get the default text. So from here you have your text. So I want to put Fnatic versus Mega Man DS. Okay, as you see that this is way too big, so you can change the size of the font. Change if it's bold or not, change italics, change centering, and then here you change your font. So for this font, like in the video, I installed a font called, I believe it's called it's called SF Comic Strip. So let's say I'll just insert that, add some space in between the names, and then here there's actually two ways you can do this. You can go to placement in the next tab and move the text around. This is probably the easiest way to do it, especially if you're using the source alpha and not the 3D source alpha. You just move it to where you want it and set it. So for that, I'm going to do that like that. Otherwise, I could have gone to the track motion of the text track and moved the whole track to where I wanted it. So let me reset this to center. I could have gone over here to track motion and move the whole track down to where I wanted it. Come on. Okay, there. But it's probably easier, especially since I'm only using source alpha, to use the placement option or the placement function, whatever it is, and move the names down here. Now the next thing we have is properties. So we have text color and background color. Background color is pretty much what's around it. Currently it's set to transparent. If you raise the slider, you'll see that it actually does have a background color, so like you can fill the whole thing up. But for this, I'm just having it as transparent so you can actually see what's behind it. Text color, again, like you can use a color picker to pick what color you want, and it can be any color that's on the screen. So I can click this and I can actually pick this color that's on my desktop, like, so that became the text color. Or I can pick, let's say in a video, I clicked on it and I went up here and clicked on the color that was the text font of the logo. So now it matches the logo. The next tab is effects. So you can draw an outline, you have to click it, and then you can draw a drop shadow. You can also enable deformations, but I didn't really want to do that. As you see, it looks all crazy, like your settings for it. I never really use that often. I just use outline and drop shadow. So for the drop shadow, I'll lessen the feather so it's a little bit more sharp, and possibly move the offset so you can see it a little more. This actually looks okay. And for the draw outline, you can also lower the feather, make the width more. Now currently it's really hard to see because it's kind of small. I'm gonna change the color. So I'm gonna pick the color. Actually, for this one, or okay, I can use the color picker again, and I could pick another color here. I believe in the video I simply just use black. So let me just click whatever. Here I just click on the colors and just drag it all the way down so you get opaque black. Or you can type in 000 for the black, and you see now you can actually see it. So then I can lower the feather. You can change the width, like if you make it too big it's gonna look all crazy, whatever. Lower the width. If you lower it too much you can barely see it. So I'm gonna leave it at, let's say, alright, okay, that looks good. Okay, so now you have your text, you have your logo, you have your game footage, and you have your player cam. Now if I were to play this right now, since I just threw it all in there, it's not synced up properly, so that the things are going to be off. The best way to avoid this is to try to start and stop both recordings at the same time, but that's not always possible, so you're going to have to try to do some synchronization yourself. There are probably other ways to do this, but this is the way that I found helped me the most, is that I would listen to the player cam and listen for the sounds of the game that it picked up, and I would mute I would go down here to the audio track of the game sound and mute it. And when you mute it, it'll turn dark or it'll turn gray, and I would let's see, let me unplug this. Maybe it'll pick it up. So I would mute this, it'll turn gray, and I would try to sync the audio that was picked up from the camera to the actual gameplay that is happening in the game. So this is, as you see that the audio is slightly, I believe, let me check again. So look at so I'm looking at the game right now, but I'm listening to the footage from the camera. So like at the beginning I just heard fight, and the game was already in the fight, which means that the footage from the camera is ahead of the footage from the game. So I would have to adjust the footage from the, it's slightly or the game is slightly ahead of the camera. So on the sound timeline or the soundtrack, this is pretty much the beginning of the match, and as from what I see from the game footage, the beginning match is over here. So I just need to drag the game footage over to try to sync up better with the camera footage or the camera audio, and I'm going to zoom in to try to get a better look at the audio levels. Like, when did I hear it say fight when did I hear them advance guard, because I saw advance guard on the game cam. So like literally fight, and then it's like a short. So let's see. So it's still off. So I'm and then okay, like right now I was just looking at it and I heard a character die, but I saw him die way earlier. So I'm gonna need to drag the footage close to when Magneto died. And like right now it's like for this it's pretty much for me trial and error to try to get around the same time. So let's see. Click back and play. So him yelling no is right when he died. So I'm gonna move it a little bit back, and then move it back to the last hit that killed him. So So it seems like this is the point where Magneto died and he let off this scream. So let's see how close it is now. Okay, it's still off, but it's closer. It's a lot closer than it started as. And then also for the preview, it's best to probably put it at possibly half, just so that it'll run smooth. Sometimes if you may need to put it at like a quarter. Like right now you're not trying to look at it for the quality, you're just trying to get it to sync up. So again, so okay, I've got a disruptor sound. Alright, let's see that. So I found a sound that was loud enough for me to distinguish and that I can easily recognize in a video, and I think I have it synced now. So I'm going to go to beginning, and so this means that the offset was, if you click on at the top of the tracks, if the mouse cursor adds a little double arrow, that means you can move the cursor, and if you hold it you can select a region. And by selecting this region, in the bottom right you can see the selection length. So the video was 7 seconds off, give or take a few milliseconds. It could still be off, but I would have to go in even deeper and try to get it. I'm just trying to do the best that I can based on the visual, just the visual plus the audio. And the only downside about doing it this way is that if your camera is really far away from the source of the sound, you'll always be off, so you're gonna have to compensate for it by possibly looking at the player's hands or their reactions, because the sound may take a little bit, it may be off by a millisecond more than what you think, or a few more milliseconds based on how long however long it takes the sound to reach your camera, or if there's too much other ambient noise so that you can't sync it, so then you may have to look at their hands or their reactions, or possibly the light reflecting off their face. That's a harder technique, but I've had to have done that before for a certain video where the sound was way too loud to sync it to their face. So for this, okay, now I have the audio synced. I have the audio and video synced, and I have the audio and the video synced for both the player and the game cam. I have my logo, I have my text, I have my background. Now I just use my resize or my cropping. I will crop out, I will drag the front of the video to the front of the gameplay so that I have the same starting point. And the same thing for the logo and the text. And then you can go down and do the same thing for the background, so you have the same starting point, so you know where everything starts. And as you see, like this video, they almost line up perfectly. At the end, you can probably just chip it off, or cut it down to wherever you want it. And as you see over here, since I didn't drag it all the way, you only have the video and the game track. So you can go here and drag the background, and I'm gonna go up here and drag the logo, and then we'll go up here and drag the text. So now you have everything, and let's see, go test. Also, if you unmute the game sound, you can also get a good indication of how close you were. There, if you don't hear a delay, like if neither one is off, if at best if there's like a slight seeming an echo, like if it's really close, like if it's really close, it's probably good enough. I would suggest possibly lowering the volume of the game, because often that's probably really loud. So it'll be overpowering the camera, unless they were using mics or mics that were closer to their face. So right now it pretty much sounds like this. I can hear a slight echo, but it's pretty much dead on. Like I could fiddle with a little bit more, zoom down to milliseconds, and like finically like move milliseconds. But also, like as you see in the camera, the spikes and valleys are pretty great. This is probably someone talking or something. But if you find a spike to, let's say, the beginning of the match, if it says fight and it's loud, and if you can recognize that same spike in the game as you do from the camera, you should be able to also, that should also be able to help you. Like if you line those up, you can work with that. So with that, that's pretty much it. I hope this helps you get your own videos out there. So hopefully this helps SilverShadow or anyone else looking at this video do something similar. And if you want me to make any other videos about either my stream or the specifics of maybe how I did an effect, just shoot me a PM or leave a comment, and I'll try to get back as soon as possible. And thanks for watching.